Hey everyone. I wanted to talk about our experience with driving across the country and some advice that I would give to people looking to plan their first long cross-country or long road trip. I've driven across the country 5 times, once when I moved out here to Los Angeles from New York, another time during 2020 when we drove back to the East Coast, and like lunatics last holiday season, we drove back because we wanted to avoid the airports and we wanted to be able to bring our cat in the car and not have to worry about unforeseen travel experiences that everybody seems to be experiencing more and more these days with the airports. I've done both routes, the route through Colorado, the northern route, and the route through Texas, the southern route, and I'd say they're both awesome and they both have incredible things to see along the way. Here are the absolute musts that I believe make a huge difference in the quality of your trip and the safety of your trip and just the overall enjoyability. So the first thing I'd say is make sure that your car has a clean bill of health from a local mechanic. I would avoid going to any kind of dealership because the dealerships will upcharge you. And in our experience, when we went to a dealership, they wanted to do tons and tons of work that the car didn't need. Brought the car to a local mechanic. We told them, we're driving across the country. We're gonna put about 6,000 miles on it. Does the car look okay for that? And they gave the car a clean bill of health. They ran a few tests, and then you can go into the trip knowing that your car is safe. I would also, depending on which time of year, make sure that you have the proper equipment in your car, like ice scrapers and windshield fluid that doesn't freeze. Now in California, it's harder to find. When you get to the colder part of the country, the fluid that's in the windshields will not come out if it's frozen. You have to make sure. That's a very important thing that we learned the hard way with. Also, if your car has automatic start through an app or a key fob, that makes the trip so much more enjoyable to be able to just turn your car on, let it warm up, let it cool down depending on where you are, and be on your merry way. The second thing that I would advise would be determine whether you want maximum efficiency or if you want to take your time, because this really makes a big difference in how you plan the trip. For example, if you're time crunched and you have to get across the country in a certain amount of days, it's gonna look a little different than if you have a month off and you're able to say, I wanna see the US and I wanna take different routes. For us, each time we drove across the country, we tried to maximize our efficiency in the drive. We kind of got it down to a science at that point. So what worked for us will probably not work for everybody. Some people might be like, wait, it took you 5 days to drive across the country? That's something that I would like to do in 2 or 3 weeks. For us, we had a time crunch and we needed to be able to do it that way. So door to door, New York to LA takes about 45 hours. You break it down, 5 9-hour days is probably the maximum that I would recommend. A really good piece of advice somebody gave me once was factor 20% of drive time to your routes. If it says 8 hours, it's probably gonna take 10 hours with traffic stops and bathroom breaks and grabbing food. All that kind of stuff adds up. You might be tempted to say, hey, I've driven more than 9 hours in a day. But you gotta look at it this way. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint. And while a lot of us have done more than 9-10 hours in a day, when you're doing those every single day, they really add up. And you need some time away from the wheel. Now, if efficiency is your thing and you want to get there as fast as possible and you feel safe and you're a confident driver, then by all means, do what you need to do to get there. So the next part is once you've determined how fast you want to get there, if you know you want to get there in 4, 5, 6 days, then it's time to start mapping everything out. I opened up Google Maps and I typed in both addresses, New York to Los Angeles. So if you're driving across the country and it's 45 hours from New York to LA and you want to get there in about 5 days, that's about 5 days of 9 hours of driving. I like to open up the browser version and you can mathematically see between New York and Los Angeles, wherever your destination is, how many hours add up to 45 hours across the country. So for us, I like to stick near major cities. When you have major cities, you're dealing with better hotels and better amenities and probably a better general sense of safety. So everything is mapped out and you know exactly what route you want to take, whether it's the northern route or the southern route or different routes. My best advice would be map out chunks of driving per day and don't go over that. It'll give you something to look forward to. It's manageable, and trust me, unforeseen things happen all the time. When you know you have somewhere to look forward to and a place to sleep, it makes all the difference, I'm telling you. All right, now you have everything mapped out, you know what towns you want to stop in. Now it's time to book the hotels. What I like to do is I like to book everything up front. Like I said, the first time we did this, we wung it and we ended up getting hotels per night. Some of them were really sketchy, some of them were okay. But the second time we did it in 2020, we didn't factor in that there were a lot of hotel shortages, a lot of hotel closures, and you never know what weird event the town that you want to stop in might be having. So for example, when we stopped in Utah, there were no hotels for 100 miles. There was some crazy event going on in the middle of that area, and there were no hotels in the entire area. I should have listened to my wife that said, why don't we stop in Colorado? All these hotels look great. I was being too proud and I said, let's keep going. No, I want to make up time. I want to make up time. And then it almost put us in a terrible position. I ended up finding a place 200 miles away and bargained with the hotel manager on the phone to convince him to hold the room for me. And he told me, if you don't get here in X amount of hours, I'm giving it to the next person. We ended up getting there and it was okay, but it was very, very, very stressful. That's probably one of the most important pieces of this entire video is book your hotels ahead of time, save yourself the hassle. It'll make things so much better. Now, another important part of this is when you arrive at each hotel, a little bonus piece of advice, ask the front desk manager for the quietest room that they have. I can't tell you how important it is to be able to go to a room where you know it's going to be quiet and you're going to be able to get a good night's sleep, because we've had experiences where we haven't asked and we were stuck next to a loud partying room or loud people making tons of noise, and it's highly disruptive and all you want to do is sleep. I would be honest and forthcoming with the hotel managers and tell them, I'm driving across the country. All I want is a good night's sleep. Can you please put me in the quietest room you have, away from the elevators, preferably in a corner where you don't have shared walls. And if you can get us on the top floor, that would be the best. And if the hotel has a fitness center, getting a nice light workout when you arrive at the hotel or early in the morning before you leave will definitely help your mental clarity when you're driving, and it'll help you feel good and nice and relaxed in the car and less stir crazy. Okay, now that you've picked your route and you know all the hotels you're staying at, it's time to pack. And not only is it time to pack what you're bringing with you, it's also time to pack your car. Now, the essentials are a given, right? Whatever you want to travel with, by all means, have fun. Things that really came in handy for us were athleisure, because you want to be comfortable when you're driving. You're not going to want to wear jeans and boots and bulky stuff in the car. You just want to feel more comfortable and flowy. Blankets, trash bags, water bottles, high protein snacks, paper towels, and most importantly for me, a hand grinder for my coffee, an electric kettle, an AeroPress, or a V60 pour over. This will give you a nice routine to have each day and be able to start your day with something that you find familiar and that you really like. In some of the big cities, there's really good coffee, but a lot of places don't open until 8 or 9 in the morning. And also, you're gonna have to search for them, and you're gonna have to spend money, and you're gonna have to go off of your route in a lot of these towns. And if you're like me that doesn't really like to drink some of the chain stuff, it made all the difference for us in our hotel room. And you're able to bring it with you in the car with a thermos and have extra when you're driving. Now, if you're moving across the country like we did, it's gonna be a lot different if you're bringing all of the stuff that you intend to bring to your new home with you. The first time we did this, we moved. So our car was packed to the absolute brim, and my wife did an incredible job of packing the car, and I did an incredible job of ruining it, taking things out of where they belonged and moving stuff around. She's still mad at me to this day. You'll find a rhythm of what goes up to the room, what stays in the car, what belongs in the room, what doesn't belong in the room. Now, obviously, you want to make sure everything stays safe and you want to keep any of your valuables out, and that's where the blankets come in handy to kind of cover things. When you're pulling up to the hotel and you know exactly what goes upstairs, the litter box, the perishables, your clothing, it makes things so much easier to know where they belong in the car, where they don't belong in the car. Everything's packed, you're ready to go. Now it's time to research food. And let me tell you, when you're on the road for a long period of time, you want to know where the dependable places to stop are. This can be overwhelming because there's so many different places and every website has different reviews and you never know what to trust. But if you know what you like, my advice would be search the major areas that you're going to be driving through for their best local stuff. Some apps that came into handy for us were Healthy Cow, even though we are not vegan. We were vegan for a few years, and one day I'm gonna make a video about that. But it gives you a good idea of places that have really high quality things with good ingredients. And then you can cross-reference and say, okay, I'm gonna be driving through St. George, Utah. What are some really good places that we could stop in a dependable way? What are some places that kind of look good to us that we would see ourselves wanting to stop at? Remember what I said earlier about staying in bigger cities? This comes in handy. At least you know that there's gonna be probably a bigger demand for higher quality places. It's probably not the best idea to just drive across the country and eat fast food all the time, but if that's something that you are into and that's something that you like, then by all means. And if you have a family with you and you're doing this with multiple people and it's hard to agree on a place to go, sometimes Chick-fil-A is the best option. We actually found some of our favorite restaurants of all time by researching this way and then stopping at them across the country, and then each time we stopped at these places because we couldn't wait to go. There's a place in Denver called Takabi and another place called Thrive, which are absolute gold stars for us. And there's a spot in Tulsa, Oklahoma called the Loaded Bowl. The Loaded Bowl will forever be one of our favorite places. Whatever you do, please consider moving out to California. All right, so you have everything packed, you're ready to go, you know your restaurants, you know where you're stopping, your car and you are well nourished. Now, make sure that you have enough cash for tolls. If you have Easy Pass or something similar to that in the Northeast or Fast Track in the Southwest, these things will not work across the country. So you're gonna be paying more money out of pocket with your credit card than you would if you just had the cash. Now, there are also parts of the country where they only allow cash. Again, in Oklahoma, they charged $1 or $2 to be able to drive on a certain highway. And they wouldn't take a credit card and they wouldn't make an exception for us. They literally said, you have to pull over at one of these local places and get cash and then get back on the highway. They run a very tight ship and I respect them for it. If you're traveling with a pet like we did, it's really important to have a system on how you open and close the door with your pet. We let our cat roam freely in the car because we wanted to give her the space to be able to feel she could use the litter box and she could comfortably sleep on our laps if she wanted to and roam around the car. But when you have to pull over to get gas, which is quite often, and to get out of the car and stretch your legs, you want to make sure that both people have eyes on the pet and one of them is looking out when the door quickly opens and closes. We had a whole system. It really worked for us. Safe to say that we've done it 5 times with no hiccups at all. Well, there was one time we couldn't find her and we were convinced she got out, but she was just hiding underneath the seat. Another thing that made the trip really enjoyable was we curated podcasts and music playlists before. So we kind of knew going in what to put on depending on what mood we were in. And then my wife also found local mystery podcasts in each market that we drove through. And it made for a more exciting experience to drive and be in an area and listen to something long form. And honestly, we talked most of the time. For a lot of people when they drive across the country, it's for a big experience. And it could be a once in a lifetime type of opportunity. So prioritize connecting with nature if you can, connecting with the road, connecting with the experience, and look at it as a marathon and not a sprint. The highways can all start to look the same and blur together, but if you're connecting with the people that you're with in the car, it could make the trip so much more enjoyable. And be prepared for things to come up. It's not easy and wine and roses the whole way. There are stressful moments. We had a rock hit our windshield. You're gonna get stuck behind crazy drivers. You're gonna be driving for long periods of time. Stuff that came up in our relationship that actually ended up strengthening our bond on the drive. So things that you don't even think you're gonna be talking about end up coming up because when you're in a different environment and you have nothing but time with the people you're with, that's where the magic happens. Check in with your loved ones. Anybody that knows that you're driving across the country, they're undoubtedly going to be concerned and maybe even worried. But we learned in our experience, a simple text in the morning to let them know we're safe, a simple text at night when we have arrived at our place to also let them know they're safe went a very long way. It goes without saying, be safe out there. You're going to be in different environments that you might not be used to, on long stretches of highway, on windy roads, in different conditions, in different terrain. Unexpected things are going to come up. You're going to have elevation changes. You might feel very overwhelmed, but staying safe, focusing on the journey rather than the destination will help. You're going to see all kinds of people on the road. It's a really good reminder to focus on what you can control. Prioritize your safety. If people look sketchy, stay away from them. If you don't feel safe somewhere, lock your doors and leave. Keep your head on a swivel, and if you're sleepy, find the safest way to pull over and rest. There is no shame in that at all. I wish that I did this when we were driving on the long stretches of highway between Indiana and Colorado. I actually started hallucinating. I thought that the car in front of me was a snake. It was dark. It looked like a snake. I still think it looked like a snake. But if I could do it all over again, I would have said, I'm tired and I think we should pull over. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this. If there's anything that I missed, please feel free to put in the comments below. Let me know if you enjoy these types of videos. I will certainly make more of them. I really appreciate everything. Have a great day and best of luck to you on your journey.